we're finally here. The final of the 10 Special Projects builds that I've released this week as the Special Projects Car Pack number 1, which I like to affectionately call it. The support has been great. I know some of you have definitely enjoyed certain builds more than others. Obviously, that's always how it's going to be. But if you would like to see this happen again next month, in addition to, whatever Polyphony gives us at the end of the month, then that was the point. Give players something to do at the start of the month and at the end, instead of always just waiting for whatever Polyphony gives us. And incidentally, if you are watching this day of release at midnight on Friday, you would definitely want to check out the video I'm putting out tomorrow. You may have already seen it from the community posts over the past few days, but I'm doing a PS5 competition. I'm releasing the video tomorrow, 7 PM UK time, but technically the early bird tickets are already available now for those who want to just get ahead of the curve. It's a PlayStation 5 for £2 with free worldwide shipping. Completely legit competition, it's not a joke, and you can already get tickets now if you do want to enter, so that's right below in the description and probably in my pinned comment as well, and definitely check out that video tomorrow. For this time though, this is actually the only build out of all 10 that I did the design for myself, because I looked on the community, a couple of people had kind of done NSX Type Rs or NSX-Rs, but I wasn't super happy with them. Some weren't subtle enough, some didn't look different enough, so for this one I've actually done 7 different colours. And of course, you can also click the community page link in the description below, and that will take you over to download whichever colour you like. So we've got white, orange, yellow, red, blue, grey, and green. And all 7 colours I chose specifically because they are Honda official colours, just to keep the immersion. Now, first of all, let's go into the tuning shop. It's a super simple build, and the idea behind it was Honda never did this. They did a Type S with just over 600 horsepower toward the end of the run, because for those who don't know, this car was not a sales success, unfortunately, much like the original. So I wanted to just have this what-if build. What if there were an NSX-R? Kind of like the older one. The older one's great, but visually it's fairly subtle, so I wanted this one to be as well, but with improved performance. So you want your sports computer, sports filter, sports silencer, and sports pads. Stage 1 weight. I've left it on sports hard tyres, again to keep that road car feel. For club sport, again, sport brakes, sport clutch. Because, like I said before, it's not a race car. I wanted it to feel realistic. The power restrictor I haven't fitted, you don't necessarily need it. I have those selected ballast, and we'll come back to why in a second. For the semi-racing stuff, all you need is the fully customised diff. For the racing stuff, if I recall correctly, yeah, it's just the suspension. So just the fully customised suspension there. Again, because it's a road car, I've left it with the standard transmission. You don't really want it getting through the gears in too much of an aggressive way because it wouldn't feel realistic. And then nothing for the extreme section. Now, for the visual side of things, you already know, like I said, you can download it below. You do not need the wide body kit. And for those who may be thinking, well, hang on a minute, it doesn't actually look like you've done anything. What I've actually done is very subtle. So the wheels are wider. It has the upgraded side skirts, the upgraded wing. I've added the NSX-R decals on both sides, and I've actually completely changed the number plates to NSX-R as well. So it is super subtle. I've also recolored the front grille. And overall, it is exactly what I was going for. The idea of a subtle difference, much like the real NSX-R was in its older form. It's not a crazy looking car compared to the normal one, and that is what I wanted here. Kind of like the Spec V version of the GT-R is. It doesn't look visually crazy, but it is just that little bit different. So that's it for the visuals. Then, if we jump back over to the garage to do the final tuning, you can see that I've chosen some pretty specific numbers. 620 horsepower, 1680 kilos, and that puts us just over 600 points. So the reason why I've done those, just briefly, is the real Type S version has like 605 horsepower. And if you recall, the older NSX-R didn't have crazy power. It wasn't really about that, it was more about the track day side. So I gave this one a slight increase to 620, but again I didn't want it to feel crazy. The weight, though, is the big difference. I've dropped it by 100 kilos over the stock car, which is 1780. I dropped this one to 1680. Again, because I wanted it to feel like that hardcore variation, but not to feel over the top. You don't want it to be some 1100 kilo car because that would be ridiculous. We've gone for sports hards, as I already said. For the suspension, 110mm. Probably looks pretty high, but I think it sits quite well. 4 for anti-roll, 35 for compression on the dampers, then 45 for the expansion. Fairly modest frequency of 2.15 front and back. 2 degrees of camber, then we've towed in by 0.5 on the rear, towed out by 0.5 on the front for a bit of extra stability. As far as the diff, this will change the build a lot. Now, I wanted the car to be certainly quicker, but also be a lot of fun, so you could just throw it into corners, really get your drift on. If you want it to feel more hardcore, then I would use the Murcielago RGT build, which I did as a reference, which has higher numbers on the rear and lower on the front, if you really do want it to feel that much sharper and almost more like a rear-wheel drive car. So again, that's up to you and your preference. We don't have NOS, of course, haven't upgraded the transmission, I haven't affected the ECU or the power restrictor. I would recommend having the ballast all the way to the front, and to get that weight of 1680, stage 1 weight with 78 kilos. That brings us nicely up to that level. Sports ECU, of course. For the downforce, the front is standard, and for the rear, I've actually set it as low as it can go, for 2 reasons. One, the wing is more of a visual thing in the case of this build. Secondly, because I didn't want it to feel too planted, too much like a race car. If you want to go higher though, absolutely go for it. As far as the rest, as you can see, we've got it all fitted: the cleaner, the silencer, the brakes, the pads, of course the clutch and flywheel, and our stage 1 weight down here. So not a particularly expensive build beyond just having the car itself, and all that remains is naturally to take it out to the track and see what it can do. So like I said, this build is easily one of the less outlandish of all 10. This, the Clio, the Viper ACR, the Viper Time Attack, they're more modest builds just for those who are aficionados of that particular car, on this occasion the NSX, and it's just one of those builds that's like, you like the NSX, you fancy something a bit different, and just a what if. Nothing too crazy, nothing designed even for racing specifically, but it's just designed for the fun of driving. So if you do enjoy the build, I hope you have a ton of fun with it, of course. If you haven't by some chance checked out all 9 of the others in this pack, then first of all, thank you for all of you who have supported the builds, and I'm glad you enjoyed them. Had some fantastic feedback, especially on a couple of them, like the Porsche RSR and the Lamborghini RGT in particular, so it's great to see that people have enjoyed those. I've already prepped some for next month, which again would be a lot of fun to release those, and potentially for a couple of other months down the line after that as well, in addition to whatever we get from Polyphony. So like I said at the start of the video, absolutely check out that PS5 competition tomorrow, and if you don't want to wait until tomorrow, the tickets are already live now, and there have already been a couple of dozen people who have entered. So check that out, continue to check these videos out, and the others if you haven't already, but until then, I'll see you next time, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.